As winter loosens its grip on our surroundings, we all look forward to spring and summer and the bounty of activities that come with it. Baseball, picnics, fireworks, and the ever-popular backyard barbecue on your stamped concrete patio. Unfortunately for some people, the melting snows of winter will lead to shock and awe as they realize the destructive force of snow and ice and the effect it had on their concrete surface. This destructive effect is known as spalled concrete, the topic of today's segment. Water, Mother Nature's gift of life, but it's also the most destructive force on the planet. And nothing exemplifies that better than here at Dinosaur Ridge. We're 20 miles west of Denver. 100 million years ago, these were thin layers of sedimentary mud. Once this hillside was exposed, water gets under the thin layers. Freeze-thaw expansion contraction in the wintertime causes the thin top layer to come apart, and you get the same mechanism that causes spalled or concrete scaling. Water expands 9% its size when it freezes. And if there's no place for that water to go when it freezes, what's it going to do? It's going to cause the destruction of the top layer or the weak layer. And that's what causes spalled or concrete scaling. We've seen what water does to weak stone. This, my friends, is what water does to weak concrete. We have a weak top layer of concrete. Water migrates under the surface, freeze-thaw expansion contraction, and we end up with the top popping off. A classic case of spalled concrete, otherwise known as concrete scaling. If you're going to place concrete in freeze-thaw conditions, and you're going to have the possibility of moist environment, you got to have air entrainment. What does air entrained concrete look like? Well, a great analogy is a sponge. Millions and billions of tiny little pores in that concrete allow what I like to call for escape hatches. All those little pores give water someplace to go. Remember, when water expands when it freezes, it expands by 9%. You give it someplace to go, all these tiny little pores, and you're going to save your concrete. No more spalling. Concrete is comprised of sand, cement, and aggregate. The cement being the glue or the paste that holds it all together, and the aggregate and the sand giving strength. If during the finishing process you end up with too much sand and cement, you get a weak top layer, and that's what comes loose when water migrates in there and you get freeze-thaw expansion and contraction. There's 4 key factors that need to be considered when placing concrete to avoid this problem. Number 1, minimum compression strength of 4,000 psi. Number 2, proper amount of air entraining admixture. Number 3, a minimum of 564 pounds of cement per yard. And number 4, a maximum of 0.45 water to cement ratio. The bottom line is you need to have a good mix. It needs to be placed properly. Can't be overwatered or overfinished, because those are the common reasons we get that thin water cement paste surface on the top that becomes weak and causes spalled concrete. Avoiding the problem all starts here at the ready mix truck. When concrete arrives, it has to be the right slump, which means it has to have the right water content. Too wet and you're in trouble. You also have to have the right admixtures. Remember, anytime you're pouring concrete in a freeze-thaw environment, you have to have air. Minimum 4%. That air allows water a place to go when it freezes. Remember, water expands 9% when it freezes. And if it doesn't have any place to go, you're going to fracture the concrete. That's one of the reasons you get spalling or scaling. The other major reason is finishing. So let's go in back and take a look at how they're finishing this particular flat piece. When it comes to preventing spalling and scaling, this is really where it all happens, right here, the finishing process. You can't overfinish the concrete, and once the concrete's down, you never ever want to add water to the surface. If I were to overwork this and continue to float this, I would bring more and more cream to the surface. It's that cream that causes the problem. You overwork it, or if it's too wet. By adding water to this, it sure is easier to work, but all that water does is bring up that cream, and you can see it. This right here is the culprit. You make too much of a cream layer, that's what's going to pop off when you get that freeze-thaw expansion. So the critical thing is don't overfinish and don't overwater.